So we're going to do a deep dive on Open AI and Anthropic. You feel like you're 13 again? Remember before America really started to completely suck. Just, like you lived on your dreams and stuff. Let's all calm down. Okay, so we are going to hit AI, like the realities of AI. I'm going to try not to embellish it with my usual colorful abstractions. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. So there's several pieces on Substack that are telling two different stories of AI. A year ago, everything was about agentic, not agentic, but AGI, artificial general intelligence. And the way I think of this is we're just going to let some sort of kill chain do whatever it wants. And obviously there's like big moral, conundrums attached to that. And of course the Pope just did a piece on that. But you can think of it both like in a technology standpoint, a monetary standpoint, and almost like an aesthetic standpoint. In other words, if we're going to build the tech, why don't we just build it all the way and let it do whatever it wants? That's the argument for AGI. And the leading proponent of that is a guy who used to fuck his sister. And I just saw the guy who's the Katie Couric and Ronan, is it Ronan Farrell or Roman Farrell that looks like Frank Sinatra and Mia Farrow? They're talking about this now, that Sam Altman has this thing for very, very young women, like almost adolescent women. They all do. It's either a coincidence or that's what you have to do to get in the club. But even Katie Couric is like, it's like, why is everybody in the system like a pedophile? Because to get in the system, you have to be a pedophile. So, but we're going to talk about the real numbers, and I'm going to try to do it like real cold and stockbroker. Like I'm going to read this. We're going to go over this zero hedge piece, and I'll, if it gets a little complicated, I'll sort of dress it up for you. Okay, there's another guy on Substack. I always like to call out people who do good content, called Will Lockett's newsletter. And like me, he gets a little like, how should I say it? His opinions are robust. So here's an article that he just put up recently. I'll use it sort of an intro to the zero hedge piece. But as I've covered before, AI has also placed a ticking time bomb at the core of our economy. No AI lab is profitable. They are all running on venture capital and debt. In fact, they have already generated over $1.2 trillion of AAA rated debt. How do they get AAA? Nobody knows. That not only means that AI is now tied to more debt than banks, but it has also flooded the bond markets, about 15%. A bond is effectively debt sold as an instrument. The riskier the debt is, i.e. the more likely the debtor is to default, the lower ranked it is, with AAA at the tippy top considered investment grade and good enough for our financial system to invest in. There's no way any tech startup, anything, should be AAA. There's no, and probably the reason they gave it AAA is because Microsoft and this committed all this capital to it, which they don't have, which they borrowed. Okay, because you've seen the swirlograms of everybody in the AI world is going to deliver $100 billion to everybody else. But wait, did you catch that? How can debt be tied to companies which are miles away from profitability, with debt being the only thing keeping them going? And Larry Fink just was interviewed a couple days ago and says, somehow we have to figure out how to get retail investors in this. All right. So that sort of tees it up for you. Now, as I go through this thing, there's going to be parts of it that are a little, like financial jargon. But what I would suggest to you is just listen to it in like a commonsensical kind of a way. Because all the propaganda, all the financial channels, everybody is, this is trillions and trillions in revenue, right? The only trillions happening are the trillions being spent to build it. There's no wall of revenue coming in the other way. Okay. So let me do it this way. So this article, I forgot I have to pay for it. I think I paid $19.95 to Zero Hedge, and it's worth it. Okay, one more thing. So, because the first word of the article is singularity. So there's this cult-like fascination in the tech world of something called the singularity. It's not unreasonable to say in theology there was a singularity. It was called the birth of Christ and the resurrection and all that. Like it changed the universe, so to speak. So their idea of the singularity is when the technology develops a mind of its own and completely surpasses. And I heard somebody else this morning. Oh, there's a book that I just ordered called The Empire of AI, like Tim Dillon. Like Tim Dillon. She's the author of this book called The Empire of AI. She was embedded at Open AI, and she says they're trying to conjure a demon. She calls it Imperial AI. But the singularity is, we already have the book called The Technological Republic, right? Where the tech is going to run the republic. I don't know if you get the joke. Trump doesn't do anything. Trump just comes on, does reality TV. I'm going to blow him up. Unbelievable. They're going to be blown up. If they don't do what's right, got to make a deal. I'm going to blow him up. Okay. He's completely inconsequential. The whole thing is being run by tech. The whole thing's being run by AI because the global financial system is going to be run by AI. So there's 5,000 data centers that have to be built here to run that system. Sometimes it's called the beast system. Okay. The singularity is this literally a metaphysical concept where humanity surpasses itself with something it built. Now, the comical way to look at that is like a Frankenstein. So it goes back and forth whether or not AI will ever accomplish consciousness. Or the question is AI gone off the rails, pun intended? Like if a train runs off, like I just heard a Tesla ran off the road with some old people in it and ran into a pond when it was autonomous. Did the car have a mind of its own? Was it conscious? It ran off the road and killed two people. I don't think, who knows? Was the person who made the autonomous system knowing that it has a fault rate of like 1/10 of 1%? and that it would once in a while run off the road and run two elderly people into a pond. I don't. These are issues. All right. The AI narrative just hit a serious snag. So this is Andrew McDonald, Uber's president and COO, in an interview said that, quote, continued spending on AI is, quote, harder to justify. We're only in, 2 years into AI. And the chief operations officer at Uber, which you'd think would be a really good use case for AI, right? There's all these. But the problem is they've already optimized the thing so much with computers and mapping and so forth. How much more optimization can they get? And, this is Uber's worth $200 billion. Now, I forgot about this. Microsoft began winding down most of its internal Claude licenses 2 weeks ago. Microsoft, that owns and controls a huge chunk of Open AI. Now, Claude is from Anthropic. Microsoft is winding down its AI spending. It put $13 billion to OpenAI, and it built the Azure cloud system that competes with AWS, which is Amazon's web services. So here's a company that's already out. I don't know how much Azure was. I think it's 100 billion or something like that. And internally, they're not even going to eat their own cooking, if you know what I mean. In April, Uber's CTO, Chief Technology Officer, said the company had already burned through its entire 2026 Claude code in 4 months. Roughly 4,000, the scale of this, listen to this, roughly 5,000 engineers, monthly usage rates between 84 and 95%, ranging from 150 to 2,000. Now, I spend $19.95 on Manus. I can't possibly think of anything that I would give it that it wouldn't run for $19.95 a month. I would have to tell it, let's destroy Russia or some crazy project like that it wouldn't have enough firepower. The CEO himself reportedly torched $1,200 in tokens during the 2-hour internal demo. McDonald would later describe his reaction to learning the number as a, quote, head-exploding moment. Sorry, I don't really even need to add very much to this article. It's all right here. Now, why is the $1,200 in tokens so expensive? Because of energy. In mid-May, Microsoft began winding down its internal Claude code. The tool had become too popular amongst Microsoft engineers, with token-based billing making this spend unsustainable at scale. GitHub announced that effective June 1, all Microsoft Copilot plans transition from flat rate, like $20 or $100 a month, to usage-based. Etelligence, it's actually like intelligence with an E, said that for every dollar spent on AI tokens, only 18% produces value. 44 cents goes for fixing bugs, and 27 cents to rework, and 11 cents to review the friction, to review the problem. Imagine, whatever you do in life, you just ran a supercomputer. You're, I don't know, anesthesiologist or something. You have a cell phone, probably have a laptop or something. But imagine you just attached a supercomputer to your world. You don't really need a supercomputer. McDonald, he's the guy from Uber, on May 22nd, he said the link is not there yet between the spend and the output. Token pricing is rising about 65% since late February, per Bloomberg Silicon Data LLM Token Expenditure Index, and the American AI software prices are up 20 to 37% per year. Now, When you hear that, you're like, well, it's just a computer. Like everybody wants. No, 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 people. They're taking people's water, power, land away from them to keep building more compute because every anesthesiologist needs a supercomputer. Do you get the joke? We're just having like, it's like my dad needs a 1200 horsepower tractor. My dad does not need a 1200 horsepower tractor. Can John Deere build a 1200 horsepower? Yes, absolutely. But there's nothing to do with it here in the hills of Western PA. The whole AI fantasy is one, they're going to build God. There's a book right there called Building God. Or two, we're going to throw so much compute at every problem in the world. Like parasites are a problem with sheep. And probably I could probably build a little app with Manus like in 2 hours to work on that. We do stool samples and check them, and it would track it on a weekly basis. It would take like an hour. Like I don't need like $10,000 worth of AI spend to check the fucking tapeworms in the manure. Follow me? If you're already at the frontier, it's not clear that doubling the R&D salaries on tokens produces any economic value at all. Do you hear what they're saying here? Like they're saying that AI has already hit the wall. The AI subsidy era is ending in real time. This is not a productivity failure on Anthropic's end. Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google all raised effective prices in the last 6 months. Both paths lead down to the same place. The numbers stop working and somebody has to take the write down. Agentic AI, that's what we're working on, will drive a 24% increase in token consumption by 2030, or roughly 120 quadrillion tokens per month. Now, hold on. I like to refer to books. So the opening chapter of this book about Warren Buffett, which is the book on Warren Buffett and this woman who's Alice Schroeder, spectacular writing style, just absolutely. I mean, it's actually as interesting to read her writing style as it is to learn about Warren Buffett. He gave a speech in 1999 at a private equity guy invites like the who's who of American capitalism. I think somewhere to like Sun Valley, Idaho, or something like that. So Buffett gave this. I remember hearing about it because I was a young stockbroker at the time. He gave this speech about airline companies, railroads, automobiles, and said these are the most important technologies of the last 200 years. And nobody's ever made any money at any of them. There used to be 5,000 automobile companies in the United States, and now there's 3. They don't really make any money. And I think he says in the speech, as of 1999, all 3 of them were trading below book value, meaning more money had been invested in them than they were currently valued at. And he said, clearly the automobile is the most important, most, not just important, but like changed American culture. I mean, American culture sort of is automobiles. And this is what this is starting to look like. Like railroads are a good idea. So let's just go build railroads fucking everywhere at any cost. That's what they're doing. Now, at the end of this, I'll tell you why. In other words, why don't they just go build the Pennsylvania Railroad, like railroad by rail? No, they're raising $1 trillion. It's like we're going to cover every county in Pennsylvania. In case you don't know, the Pennsylvania Railroad was like the Microsoft of its day. It was the all ubiquitous stock that was traded. It was called the Scarlet Lady of Wall Street. We may have already hit the wall in AI stocks, and they're going public at $1 trillion. And that's why they can only issue 6% of the equity at a time. So back to intelligence, intelligence. If 82 cents of every AI dollar doesn't reach the product, the gross consumption numbers the labs report are decoupled from the value enterprises actually receive. Excuse me. That can persist for a while. It cannot persist. Like they're losing 82 cents out of every dollar being spent on AI. Or to put it another way, the people, um, the early use of, as you'd expect, of the Pennsylvania Railroad was coal and lumber and then steel and then other things. But you can imagine if, like, for every dollar spent on moving lumber on the railroad, um, 80%, 82 cents of it like was lost. It wasn't even a positive return. It was a deeply negative return to move things on a railroad. Okay, I've covered this ad nauseum. This is the AI whales, and this is their Microsoft, Oracle, Google, and Amazon. This is their obligations into the world of AI. Microsoft's is $627 billion. Oracle is $550 billion. Like everybody's excited about that number. There's no revenue coming the other way. Everybody's jacked off about the money going out the door. In other words, everybody's excited about the money being spent on the railroad and the airlines and the car companies. There's no cars being sold. Google, $467 billion. Amazon, $500 billion. I just look at this as like all the cash flow of the Mag 7 is going into AI and then some. Okay, this chart is explaining just that there's companies like Uber spending money on tokens that goes to AI labs like Open AI and Anthropic, which cost $3 for they're losing the cost for a dollar of revenue is $3. The hyperscalers then have $2 trillion in backing. And the revenue that's supposed to go back to OpenAI and Anthropic is promised by the hyperscalers. Here's the swirlogram. Everybody pays everybody else. The bull answer to this requires orchestration to mature and the unit economics to inflict on a 12 to 18 month horizon, and this will all become profitable. Like Amazon never made any money for 20 years, and then all of a sudden started to make lots of money. That's the thinking of Wall Street. The bear answer requires more enterprise executives to do what McDonald just did, say out loud that the spending doesn't justify itself, and start to cut consumption. Both paths are plausible. Neither is yet decided. Now, there was a chart here that I think it was on this one. OpenAI and Anthropic revenue chart goes like this. It's already here. Like the numbers are already baked in that the demand for AI is sort of, yeah, it's cool. It's interesting. It'll have, um, if you look at Google Gemini, it's sort of the easiest to get comfortable with because you get on there and like want to buy a new pair of running shoes or something, and then you can click over to OpenAI, or excuse me, over to Google Gemini, And it'll give you like this more better articulated search engine just than like, here's 12 articles on Nike or running shoes, right? It'll sort of digest that and present it. So really, it's just like the next generation of search. Or some philosopher guy, when I started studying, said this, just regurgitating the regurgitation is not going to make a better outcome. So why are they doing this? Why is there 5,000 data centers in the United States and every other big industrialized country has like 250? War. It's about war, people. The central banking system is being replaced by a new central banking system that runs on digital currency. In order for that system to work, every single thing, you understand that the Federal Reserve can look into every bank transaction that there is. It's the bank of banks. So whenever you hear things like Bernie Madoff got away with $60 billion, that's just not true. It has to be an intelligence operation. It has to have some sort of mechanism that it gets through the banking system and nobody cares. Now, I have my ideas where the $60 billion went, but let's all calm down. The wars, the Palantir, and the banking system changes are the same thing. That's always been my thesis on here. If something goes wrong with either one, whether the AI spend or the war, I think they're going to happen simultaneously because they already are. The money available to build data centers has been pinched off because Iran bombed the living shit out of the Gulf states. That's where the money was going to come. That's where the $1 billion a day comes from, to do with whatever Wall Street wants to do with it. It comes from the Middle East. And there's very few industries that like just print $1 billion a day. Microsoft and Coca-Cola, like those kinds of things. I don't know what Walmart makes today. I don't think it's $1 billion, but the cost of production in the Gulf states for oil is probably like less than $20, and they sell it now for $150. But it's under the control of Iran. So we have a real conundrum with AI. People don't really know what to do with it. It's not really making a return on investment because it's about war. Follow me? I've said this all along. If they're going to put $1 trillion into AI, they don't give a shit whether or not it makes money or not, because it's about war. And that's the narrative. We have to do this. We have to outrun China. We're spending $1 trillion on it, and we're not outrunning China, right? Just I'm editorializing here, but Trump just took Jensen Wang or whatever his name is, the NVIDIA CEO, to China, and China's like, we're not buying your fucking chips. Because originally Trump, as part of his, early tariff policies, said that we're going to cut off the chips to China. So China said, fine, cut them off. We don't need them. And what they did is they sent the word out, and what it did is it incentivized their industries to go make other arrangements. So people were like, yeah, but they can't make 2mm chips like NVIDIA can. So they just built AI systems that don't need 2mm chips. You know what I mean? Like, imagine somebody says, yeah, but you're going to have to run the Indy 500 and you can't have an 8-cylinder engine. Well, you can make a pretty badass 6-cylinder engine with some turbochargers and shit that are right up against an 8. You know what I mean? It's sort of a crude comparison, but. And then they took DeepSeek, and the Chinese Communist Party foisted it on every business, was running DeepSeek. So it's a massive learning chain. And then they told the geeks, sort of like Ethereum, Go figure out a way to use less power. So now the Chinese have a competitive advantage because they didn't bring in the NVIDIA chips. I don't understand the whole concept that we're going to out tech China. Like, I just find that like childish. Like, no, we're not. Nope. It's a problem white people are having. White people are sort of having a hard time understanding their place in the universe. I did that last Sunday. So now it just so happens that I'm not making this up, and I don't want to talk, out of turn, but I just talked to some guys who operationally could go build the localized AI, which is the optimized AI, to do research on sheep parasites and things like that. Like the human, realistic, focused, human controlled thing, not the conjuring of the demon. Really, what it is, it's a conjuring of the demon because of war, right? In war, you want to create some demonic, horrible, very bad double twin 50 caliber machine gun that can cut through a pickup truck at a mile away. China, not so much. China, they do human things. We're going to need it to do human things here in America. Because I don't know how you feel about the whole 7 million versus 7 billion thing, but that's going to fail. And pouring $1 trillion into data centers is going to fail. AI is not going to fail, but this wacko um, like inverted theocracy is going to fail. This war against the universe is going to fail. I mean, I don't just bring up the fact that Sam Altman, there's a good interview on Substack by this woman who wrote this book, Empire of AI. There is so much negative. Everybody that worked with Sam Altman left and started a new AI company because he is so toxic. And you have to ask yourself, if Open AI fails, you guys can get on here and be like, all right, Bruno, what's up with the NASDAQ? It's consuming all the cash flow of the NASDAQ. Not Riley Auto Parts, but you know what I mean? The big mega billions that come in through the tech companies. It's consuming all of it and then some off balance sheet bullshit, deferred revenues that it owes OpenAI. OpenAI owes the money back. The fucking mortgage crisis isn't even in the same league. They could have written that off in 5 days. I mean, the real financial people, not the fraudsters who run the American system, but real financial people were just like, all right, everybody get onto their books, find the bad fucking mortgages and write them off. And people who are in trouble, put them on interest only for 18 months. And everybody's going to have to eat the shit sandwich. Right? But nobody ever eats the shit sandwich in Wall Street because they have this thing called the Federal Reserve to transfer wealth from the people who create the wealth to the people who don't do anything. Sort of like war, isn't it? Now, this isn't really an argument to say that the NASDAQ's gone down. If this bitch blows up, they printed $7 trillion for, I mean, do the math in your head. They printed $7 trillion for 600 billion in bad mortgages. And of those, It was probably it was probably $200 billion of people who really couldn't make a payment. Write it off. Goldman Sachs had 2% equity on its balance sheet. So in other words, if the bond market would have left a fart, they're bankrupt. So like a real capitalist would have said, fuck you, Goldman Sachs, you're now worth 50 cents a share. That's real capitalism, but we don't do that anymore because we never did. Okay. This is Trump says it's $18 trillion we're putting into this. The bailout is already built into it. I don't know what they're going to do. Okay, I guess I'll finish with this. Open AI and Anthropic going public, issuing 6% of the equity is the bailout. Have a nice day.